little technical stuff going on over here. Okay. Very good. Well, with all of our technical stuff in order, we can go ahead and call this meeting to order. So welcome everybody to the City Council meeting of October 27th, 2020. We will take the moment to take our Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll do our roll call. So folks, if you'll join me in standing, and Grant will put the flag up. And when you're ready, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. City Clerk, will you take the roll, please?
Councilmember James Blair.
Here.
Councilmember Molly Carmody.
Here.
Councilmember EJ Curry.
Here.
Councilmember Ted Stillwell.
Here.
Councilmember Tracy Wood.
Here.
Councilmember Joe DePinto.
Here.
Councilmember Terry Kaminsky.
Here.
Mayor J.W. Foster.
Also here.
Thank you.
Very good. Now, before we approve the agenda, we have three things to consider for the agenda tonight. Thing one is that pursuant to a request from Councilmember DePinto for an executive session for update on the ongoing negotiations with Teamsters and FOP, we had thought we would move that to the next council meeting, but we did get some more information to share with you. So I'd like to include the executive session on tonight's agenda. You'll see by your updated packet that we've put that as item 6 after the consent calendar. Thing two was an oversight. We are ready to present our student of the month for September. We got our stuff in just in time to put it on tonight's meeting, so we'd like to put that under special presentations before we congratulate Joe. And then I believe we have one more request for a change of the agenda from Councilmember Curry.
Yes, I'd like to have a discussion on changing the meeting date of the study session next week.
And the recommendation would be to move it to the Wednesday
or have it Monday.
Staff would support a move to Wednesday. Councilmember DePinto?
Thank you, Mayor. May I know the reason why, Councilmember Curry?
Yes, 4 years ago, I suggested we should never have a study session on the night of the national election because people are interested in watching returns and all of that. And it just seems to be more important to be home for the returns.
I would concur.
I'll second that one.
All right, good. That's what we needed, council. This is your meeting and your date to set. So I'm hearing a motion and a second. I will include that as all amendments to the agenda as described. Any other discussion? All in favor of the amended agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the new agenda will show that the discussion about, which you actually have to vote on then, because it's a discussion item, we're just adding it to the agenda now, will be 7B, 7B under new business. So we'll just take care of that as an article of business when we get there. Really good. So I want to check our attendees real quick. I see Nicole Mathis is here from the school district. And Nicole, Grant, does Nicole have chat function available to her, or can you make her a panelist so we can talk?
She's unmuted.
Hey there.
Hi, Nicole. Hey, were you able to get a hold of Brianna?
I sent her the link. She had been in contact with me. And I sent her the link right before we started. I'm not sure if she rechecked her email or not.
Okay.
And sorry about that. Honestly, she's the one who emailed me and asked for the link, and I had kind of spaced tonight.
That's
I see
that's
that.
okay. We're doing things virtually and figured things out. If there's a way for you to try to get a hold of her to see if she can join in, what I'll do is we'll do our first special recognition, special presentation first, and then we'll do Brianna's second.
Okay, what I might do is just hop on and see if I can't find her phone number on our school stuff. So
I'll bet you can.
all right.
Okay, so yeah, have her log on, and when we see her log on, then we'll do that special moment with her.
Okay,
So
thank you.
You're welcome. So then, Chief, we will go on to special presentation recognition of Joe Rivera at this point.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, Council. Good evening to everyone. And there's Joe right down there
There's Joe.
until he pops up here.
That's not Joe.
That's not Joe. Joe, can you hear us?
I can.
Okay, perfect. So the special presentation tonight for Joe is a sad occurrence, unfortunately. And Joe is leaving the department and leaving the city. He is moving to Florida next month for some incredible opportunities for him and his wife. And so he will be leaving us after giving us 8 years of service. And during that 8 years of service, he was a Reserve Officer of the Year 3 different times, 2016, 2018, and 2019. And more than likely, if he could have made it to the end of this year, he would have been Reserve Officer for 2020 as well. During that time, Joe has given the city, we estimate, 4,500 hours of service. He has probably personally been involved in more pursuits than most officers combined. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but he always got the bad guy whenever it happened. As an example, Joe was out today. Typically, how he's out during the week, spending 4, 5, 6, 10, 12 hours. And I think he just got back from the jail 20 minutes ago from doing something else. So we will definitely miss Joe. Aside from his service as a police officer, he is an IT individual by trade. He has an incredible ability to help us fix our computers. He's just there. He is always there whenever we needed Joe. And so he came in and he turned in his letter of resignation for us, and I said, just take that back and put in a leave of absence. And if it doesn't work out there in Florida, he has a spot back here with us. But anyway, we definitely wish him the best, and I wish we could do this in person so everyone could see Joe before he leaves. His last day for the department is going to be November 6th. So next Friday will be his last day, and we'll probably have an opportunity to maybe stop by and grab some lunch or something like that with Joe sometime next week and say our parting farewells. So what we did is we got Joe this plaque. We're going to send Joe this plaque with him. It looks like this. It has a Reserve Officer badge on it. And what it says is, Joseph Rivera, in recognition and appreciation for your 8 years of service to the city of Yelm, 2020. So we will hand this to Joe. As soon as we're done tonight, I'll walk down the aisle here and give Joe this, and then who's in the other room. And so again, we'll greatly miss Joe and thank him for everything he's done for the city. Joe, is there anything you would like to say? I know you normally have a lot to say in these types of situations. Is there anything you would like to say?
I just want to thank the department, the chief, the assistant chief, everybody here for this wonderful opportunity. I'm gonna miss it. I'm gonna miss everybody. I'm gonna miss the city, the residents, the visitors. It's a tough decision to go, and thank you. I just want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I will never forget this experience. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, be right with you, Joe. Joe, we could talk all night about you, honestly. So many good stories about how you served our community in so many different ways, not just as a reserve officer. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
The hard part is going to be any reserve officer coming in trying to come up and jump over the bar that you've set.
Yeah,
But, you know, we're not letting the door swing too hard, but we do have some reserve applicants already.
good, good.
So hopefully they have size 12 shoes.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for what you've done. And I think Councilmember DePino has a word he'd like to share.
thank you.
Joe, you've done a great job for the city. You reserve officer every year. Well, I think you missed 1 year, maybe 26, 2017, 20. I forget. 3 times though while I was on council. You've done an amazing job for the city. Like the chief said, you're always in all these pursuits. I think it's amazing that you do so much. Not to belittle you as a reserve officer, but you do a lot for a reserve officer, and it's going to be a position that's sorely missed when you're gone. So wish you well and your wife well in Florida, and wish you the best for all your future endeavors. Thank you for your service to Yelm.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, Joe, are you actually at the jail still?
No, I'm over at the PD
He's doing paperwork.
doing paperwork so I can go and do it again.
We're going to use you up.
That's right.
Anybody else on the council want to share anything with Joe? All right. Well, we'll let you get back to your paperwork, and I'm sure that we'll get to see you again before you leave, but good luck, man.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Outstanding. Okay, folks, well, we do have Brianna has joined us, and Grant could probably elevate her to a panelist as well now. I think he's just done so. Hi, Brianna. Are you with us?
She'll be right here. It's restarting.
Oh, there she is.
I am now. Hi.
Hi. Hey, tilt your camera down just a little bit or sit up taller. We want to be able to see. There you are.
Hello.
You look just like you do in your pictures. Well, for folks who are watching tonight, I want to tell you a little bit about the Student of the Month program and about Brianna. A few years ago, we started doing this with the school district and with the Rotary Club of Yelm. The school district provides us with some selections of outstanding students, and the committee chooses one of these students to be the Student of the Month all through the school year, and then one of them is selected as Student of the Year at the end of the school year. And in addition to an awesome plaque, which I think we'll be able to show you a picture of here shortly, we have partnered with community businesses to provide them with some honorarium. Ken McCulloch, American Family Insurance, Masonry Cafe, Olympia Federal Savings, Edward Jones, Advisor Pam Ferris, Pizzeria La Gitana, Scotty Brown Windermere, the Shiplap Shop, Walmart, Yelm Food Co-op, and the Grocery Outlet all participate in providing something to honor these exceptional students. So it's really a kind of a big deal. And I want to now tell you a little bit about Brianna. So try not to blush, Brianna, but what we were given from the school is this. Brianna is an outstanding Yelm High School senior and very deserving of being honored by the Yelm Rotary Club in the city of Yelm. She overcame a rocky start to her high school career and has risen to the top, serving her school and her community in many important ways. She's involved in school leadership, FFA, helped create blankets for the homeless, and fundraised for local charities, just to name a few things. She is a true servant leader who cares about the outcomes of her peers and enriching their high school experiences. She also challenges herself academically to support her dreams and will pursue an agricultural education degree at WSU next year. The Rotary Club of Yelm and the city and our business partners wish you all the best in those endeavors. Congratulations, Brianna. Virtual applause.
Thank you.
Now, Brianna,
Yes.
would you like to say anything or perhaps sing the school song or
I really just want to say thank you so much. I cannot express how appreciative I am for my entire Yelm community, and thank you all so much.
Well, you're welcome, and we look forward to working with you in other ways in the future. I'm sure we're going to see you around. Thanks for coming in tonight, Brianna. And thanks, Nicole, for helping us get Brianna online for this meeting.
Congratulations.
Very cool. Now, Brianna, you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. They're really pretty exciting. So,
Okay.
I think I got one. Very good. Okay, those are always a good way to start a meeting. Folks, we are now to the point in the meeting where we invite public comment. In the past, we've always used the blue card where you come in person, fill out the little blue card and let us know that you want to talk. We can't do that right now. So instead, if there's somebody from our attendees, from the public who would like to address the council tonight on a subject that's not on the agenda, would bring you up again later for an agenda item. This would be a time for you to raise your hand or let me know in some way in the chat box that you'd like to address. And perhaps to accommodate that, Grant could unmute you all just for the purpose of making sure you get my attention. I see Cheryl Dance, so let's get Cheryl Dance up there. And Cheryl, in 3 minutes or so, can you tell us, tell the council what you'd like to talk about tonight?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can.
Yeah, okay. I had 5 points, but I think some of them are on your agenda. So now I'm kind of confused on what I can and can't talk about.
Just go ahead and talk about what you want to talk about for the next 3 minutes or so. And if it crosses over, that's okay.
All right, thanks. So I'll talk as fast as I can. But first I want to say thank you to all of you who are the mayor and the city council members for committing to do this role. It's a 4-year commitment, and that's something I personally wouldn't be willing to do. So it's good that some people are willing to do that, and I appreciate that as a city resident. Not that I always agree with you, but hey, that's okay. I have one clarification question about the grant. That was for the satellite college possible site in the future. And I understood that it was a grant, you use it or you lose it, and money is not coming from our city budget. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. And then I wanted to say spending $10,000 for 10 benches seems ridiculous to me, but you do whatever. I just think that's a crazy amount for 10 benches. And I would like to know where those benches are going. And I don't know if that's public information or if that comes out later on. That might be a nice newspaper article to inform us about the costs and where they're going. Number 4 is, okay, the water rates. Can I talk about that now?
Sure.
I'm going for it. So I did some research. And when Mayor Harding was here back in 2009, there was a lot of battles going on about water rights. And I remember those battles. And I think the city must have won because Tahoma Heights or Tahoma Highlands has been built. And that was where one of the battles was. But anyway, the point is, back in 2010 to 2015, there was a 6-year water rate hike. And it was over a 6-year increase of 66% of our water rates went up, 66%. It was like 16% the first and second year, and then 8.5% for the following 4 years. So I think I calculated that at 66%. And then we had 2 years of no water rate hikes that I'm aware of. And then you guys did it to us again. And you gave us a 5-year water rate hike at 23.5%. So we had in the last 10 years, our water rates went up 90% with the city council and the 2 mayors. So what I think might be interesting, and I know other people feel this way, and a lot of people I talk to and I read blogs and I talk to people who used to work for the city who no longer work there. Sometimes, most times people say there's mismanagement. And I'd just like to know, where did that money go, that's 66% rate and the rate that we've been paying for the last 3 years, what projects has that money been spent on, or has that money been squandered away? You know, a lot of people really don't trust the city government in Yelm that I talk to, but I have no opinion because I really am not informed about a lot of stuff. So I'm just asking more questions. And it'd be really nice to have a 10-year summary written in the newspaper again, and about what our water rate money has been spent on in the last 10 years. And it could be, you know, after that 6 years of saving money, what did Mayor Harding spend that money on? What capital projects have been done? And I know some have been done. And then Mayor Foster, in the 4 years that you've been there, what have the city council and you been able to accomplish with our 3-year raise hike with those level tier, 4 tier and 3 tier, that a lot of it might be profit for you. So you just need to inform us on how our money's being spent. And I'm not the only one who feels that way. So I don't hear you talking. Is he talking?
Cheryl?
What?
Hi, I'm back. I muted myself. You raised some really good points. And, you know, after our 45-minute conversation on the phone the other day, which I really enjoyed answering your questions then too,
Yeah.
I will point you toward staying with our city council meetings going forward. During the budget process, you're going to hear quite a presentation from our public works director, Cody Colt, who's going to explain how the budget incorporates some rate reductions in the water rates. And then going into next year, as you know, we'll also be having a chance to look at these water rates and the wastewater treatment facility rates to see how we can best make those rates affordable and still do the work that they're supposed to do for the city and its water utility customers. Right. So stand by for those answers, and I do appreciate you taking the time to address the council tonight. I see Councilmember DePino wants to weigh in on that.
Thank you, Mayor. Cheryl, to answer your question, that money, those fee increases, especially the ones that have gone recently, a lot of them go to salary for benefits. Those were one of the biggest costs for any budget in any municipality. But we also have other projects that we're working on too. And a lot of it focused around the water treatment plant that we're trying to renovate. Some of that money went to one-time cost to update software. We were using an old, I think Windows 95 or something like that. And we updated some of that software, which I believe is fairly spendy. But all the other infrastructure related to that project and the water treatment facility.
Yeah, but my water rates don't pay for the water treatment facilities, my understanding, because that's like the sewer plant.
Part of it, I mean, yes and no. Some of it does go towards it. There's a kind of a good breakdown, especially if you look at the budget that the proposed budget the mayor released on the city website. It kind of breaks down into what those specifically goes towards. And some of the projects we've been working on in the last few years. It's if you look in the very ending of it, I believe it shows some of the miscellaneous construction projects, and you can kind of see some of the different types of projects that we're working on and that are disclosed in that.
Right. Yeah, Mayor Foster told me about some projects where some of the money went, and that makes sense. Okay, so my last comment is about the proposal that's going on later on this evening. So I can wait for that, or I can bring it up now. But I've talked my 3 minutes. So.
Yeah, so thank you, Cheryl. Why don't you allow us to put forth there's some information about the budget that you might find informative to your comment, and then we'll ask you to weigh in at the public hearing part of that part of the meeting, okay?
Okay, that's fine.
All right, stand by. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to talk to council tonight? I see Debbie. I know. Okay, then no. We'll move on from public comment to the consent agenda, which, as you can see from your packet, are the minutes from October 6th and 13th, the financial report for September, and the vouchers for September. And do remember, council, that after approving the consent agenda, we do need your signatures on those documents, and they're waiting for you in council chambers at City Hall. for you to come in during business hours and sign those so we can get them in the record. I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
This is Molly. I move to approve.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Kaminsky. All in favor?
Aye.
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 James? Councilmember Blair? I will show that the motion passes 6-0.
I was an aye. Sorry, my mic got on.
7-0. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Council. Before we move on, I just want to read a comment from the chat. This is from John Johnson, Yelm High School principal. He really wants to appreciate the dedication to acknowledge the students as part of the Student of the Month through the Rotary and the City of Yelm. So thank you, Principal Johnson, for coming into our meeting tonight. Appreciate that. Okay, and Cheryl, we're going to have to make you wait for a while. We have an executive session scheduled, so we'll go into a separate meeting, and then this meeting will stay live, but we will come back in 20 minutes. The purpose of this executive session is to discuss ongoing negotiations with our bargaining units. So we enter into the executive session at 6:26, and we will be back by 6:46, or we will let you know that we have to extend the time. So council members, exit out of here, and you should have gotten a link from Lori to go into the special meeting. We'll see you there.
That was the quickest 10 minutes ever.
Yeah, it happens that way sometimes. So Grant, you'll need to let the audience back in too.
You're here.
Oh, I had the wrong screen up. Thank you. There we go. Okay, we all back? Check. Who am I missing?
EG, I think.
The laptop she's working on has a fairly slow load rate, apparently. Michael, did you get EJ loaded back up on that? Okay, stand by. We'll go make sure that council member.
They did that already.
Okay, we're good. We're back. Thank you, everybody, for the executive session. Thank you, attendees, for being patient while we had that discussion. We're back in a regular meeting, and we're back to our new business, which is number 7. Now, this is the 2021-2022 biennial budget public hearing on revenue. So we're going to enter into the public hearing on this at 6:52 p.m. And Cheryl, again, after the presentation, if you'd like to make any questions or comments, we would invite you to do so at that time. Any other members of the community also. And right now, though, I believe we're going to turn this over to Heidi McDonald for the presentation.
Oh, can everybody hear me okay? So this is the first of 3 public hearings on our 2021-22 biennial budget. This hearing focuses on revenue sources. It's an informational briefing only. There's no action that's required at this meeting at all. I know that this is difficult to read and it's small, but this presentation is going to be loaded up to the website after this discussion, and this information can also be found in the budget document, pages 33 to 36 or so. Our beginning fund balances are estimated to be 20.5 million at the beginning of 2021, and the revenue we expect to come in 2021 is 40.9 million. And then in 2022, it's 25.9 million for a total of 66.9 million. The spike in 2021 is related to the funding of the water reclamation facility. And you'll get to hear more about that during Cody's presentation on the 3rd. This is just a brief overview. So the general fund has really 3 major revenue sources. Sales tax is 35%. while property tax is 22%, and B&O taxes and licenses make up 28%. The sales tax is budgeted based on historical trends. That's where the increase from that comes from. Property tax is at 22%. So for 2021, we budgeted 1% over last year's tax. Plus, on top of that, we get credit, or we get taxable property from construction and our newly annexed neighborhood. 2022, the budget is based on 1% over 2021. And so if the ad valorem passes, or the 1% on November 10th, the November 10th meeting, then Yelm is anticipated to receive about $15.36 for every $100 spent, or just 15 cents for every dollar. Taxes are levied by Thurston County, and they're collected by Thurston County for all tax districts, including the city of Yelm. They have a really interactive, nice website, is where I got this graphic that shows where the money of the money of the taxpayers of Yelm goes. You can see that about 50% goes to schools, 8% to cities. How it's broken up. Fire gets about 9%, and the county gets about 9%. You can go to this website here and type in your address, and you can see your very specific tax allocation. Oops, didn't do that. So business and occupation tax makes up about 20% of the general fund revenue, with the majority of that actually coming from utility taxes, not utility taxes that people are paying on their bills necessarily to us, but the people that provide the utilities pay a tax to the city of Yelm for use of our right-of-way. 37% of the business and occupation income comes from the B&O tax itself, while 7% comes from the licenses and permits. The business and occupation tax rate remains the same. It hasn't changed. It's 1/10 of 1% of gross sales. And the budget is based on previous trends at 2%. Here you can see a comparison of general fund revenues, which are in the blue, and general fund expenses. I'm sure everybody was interested in that big spike in 2018. Every time the graph comes up, people ask, that is the funding of our ER&R funds. You can see that in 2020, we are a bit under, because we have been being cautious and conservative due to COVID, so we have some budget savings. And then here we spike up a little for one-time expenditures in the budget, which I'll explain more in the next slide. And then in 2022, they balance out a little bit more. In case people don't know, with the ER&R fund, that stands for Equipment, Repair, and Replacement. We have two funds, one for our capital equipment, such as police cars and public work vehicles, and then we have another one for our IT services. So here, this is basically the same information as the previous graph, but it shows also the estimated ending fund balance. And so you can see that the ending fund balance drops to, in 2022, to about $1.1 million. And that is our threshold required by our policies for our minimum general fund balance, ending balance. The savings that we saw through the last year are being budgeted towards one-time expenditures, which you'll hear about over the next few meetings from the different departments. We have several special revenue funds. Oh, I did want to mention something on this. Sorry. So you'll see that the trend goes down starting in 2000. It's relatively flat in 2021 and 22, and then it goes down. And so we handle that a couple of ways. We do it through careful monitoring of our current budget cycle. So if there's anything that's unexpected and we're not remaining within a balanced budget, we can act quickly and make adjustments. And then the decrease, we strive to budget every year to have a balanced budget. And so even though it shows a decrease in the trend, when we budget, we won't allow that to happen. We might not be able to fund everything that we want, but we certainly won't keep going down. Okay, so our special fund, we have our street operations and our arterial street funds. They get the majority of their revenue from the multimodal or motor vehicle tax sales. Multimodal is part of the Washington state and is distributed based on a per capita, while the motor vehicle fuel tax is based on number of gallons sold. We also support the street operating fund with a transfer in from the general fund. We have a couple of smaller special revenue funds, one for tourism promotion, and that is funded through hotel tax. And those funds must be distributed for purposes that bring new visitors to our area. We also have a school resource officer, and that is supported through Yelm Community Schools. Our utility funds, our user fees, also known as rates, are actually budgeted to decrease based on assuming the council's approval of a new rate structure that will be presented by Cody on November 3rd and then possibly adopted on November 10th. It's designed to give relief to the average household. I think people will be very pleased when he rolls it out. The system development charges and other connection fees, there's no change there. And then we have earnings on interest and investments, which they are all dependent on the interest rates in the market. With the sewer, there was a 1% increase based on population growth, the rates were 1% increase, and then it was also factored in the population growth that is expected over the next 2 years. Again, system development charges and other connection charges didn't change. And interest earnings on investments is part of their revenue. Storm fees, there is no change in the rates whatsoever. The only increase noted in the budget is based on population growth or due to population growth. Next are capital improvement funds, which you'll hear about the expenditure part on November 3rd when the Public Works gives their presentation. Most of their revenue comes from real estate excise tax, otherwise known as REIT. It's levied on all property sales in the state of Washington. That REIT money is split with the street capital improvement fund. There is a requirement for some of that money to only be spent on certain things, and street is one of those. There will also be highway construction grants and a state transportation improvement board grant that'll support that fund and the projects like the Mossman realignment. Our capital water improvement fund, the system is supported mainly by system development charges and a transfer in from the water fund. Similarly, our sewer capital improvement fund is supported by system charges, a transfer in from the water or from the sewer utility. The Department of Ecology loan is the big factor here. This is a $26.8 million loan designed to fund the wastewater reclamation facility. And you'll again hear more about that coming meetings. And so our path forward in adopting the biennial budget is we have the budget workshop on November 3rd, where you have from Public Works, Human Resources, and Customer Service. Then on November 10th, we have the ad valorem presentation and public hearing. We have our second of 3 public hearings on the budget. And then we will adjourn into a public workshop where you'll hear from community development, IT, and more from finance. On November 24th, that is your first opportunity to adopt the budget. We'll have our 3rd and final public hearing And at that time, we'll also be doing a routine review and adjustment of our current budget, 2019, 2020, to make sure that we're on track to finish the year within budget. On December 1st, if we need to have continued deliberations, there's an opening for during the study session there. And then you could also adopt it on December 8th. The final, no matter what, we have to adopt it before the end of the year. That's required by law. Does anybody have any questions? Joe?
Thank you, Heidi. I was wondering, could you give us the revenue projections from 2019 and the actuals of 2019?
They are in the budget document.
Okay, could you cite a page, or do you know them off the top of your head by any chance?
Well, there's a lot of them. Which one are you thinking about? Hold on, let me pull that up. What revenue are you thinking about?
Just total revenue.
Total revenue for 2019. I believe it's on page 33.
33?
Starts on 33, but between pages 33 and 36.
Okay, thank you. And then also, is there a way we can get that presentation that talks about the, and I appreciate the graph on there, but could you, would it be possible to have that graph with the actual numbers on there rather than just the graph up and down?
So it's the graphs. Do you have the numbers on the side in the key? If you wanted to look at those, but
yeah, but those are just approximate though. They're not exact numbers, are they?
hold on, let's go back in.
Yeah, like, yeah, the last one.
Business occupation. So they
No,
have
go over. If you go over.
Okay.
Over that one right there. Is it possible for where it says 2016 to have that value, 2017 have that value, 2018 have that value, so on?
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to do that right now, but I can.
Sure.
Just it like that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions that I can answer for anybody?
Okay, while you're thinking, council, we will open this up for questions from the citizens. Cheryl, did you have any questions or comments on the budget at this point?
Okay, I'm unmuted.
Yes, you are.
I just, I just want to say this. I don't mean to offend anyone, so just take this with a grain of salt. But this is about, I think Mr. DePinto is working on it with Cody, and it's for the new water proposal. And sometimes Councilmember DePinto kind of posts things on a Facebook site that I see. And in there, he explained it, and it seems fine to me. The rates will be lower for me, I guess. But he mentioned that somebody was asking questions, and he mentioned it, and this is for Councilmember DePinto, I guess, that there might be a 600,000 shortfall in what was budgeted originally. And if that's true, I don't know. But I just want you all to make sure that you're considering any capital projects that you had planned that maybe you won't have money for it, or building up a reserve fund that, this 600,000 might be a part of that. Just things that, people may not have thought of, but you should have thought of it. So this just maybe just nonsense what I'm talking about. But I think, it's really important to make sure that's considered, because in 2023, then we might get a 10% rate hike to make up for the shortfall from the following years, 21 and 22. So, and then you're going to have all these people calling you again and on your city council again complaining. And so I'm just saying, cover all your bases is what I'm saying.
Thank you, Cheryl. Joe, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Cheryl, so the 600,000 I was referring to was, I believe what you're referring to, talking about from my Facebook post, was the 600,000 in revenue that we were going to see less of, right, and if adopted. So it's not necessarily a shortfall. It's also that money goes towards a lot of different things, that fund. It's not just from water. And so I don't necessarily think it's a shortfall. I think that we're going to be taking in most likely less money due to lower rates, but right, part of that is going to be through other fundings, other funds and savings that we've already accrued as well. So while it might look like it's a loss, I don't believe it is a loss.
Yeah, that's how I interpret it, as a $600,000 loss. And I interpret it from water rates, that you're lowering it so much that you would have that much less available.
Now, yeah, and perhaps Cody can explain it more. This is his brainchild.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
I saw Heidi's hand up. Did you want to comment on that?
Well, Cheryl had mentioned the 2019 and 2020 rates, and COVID has had an impact on the water and sewer consumption, a little bit negatively due to some of the schools and different other large businesses not being able to operate. But we saw that and we adjusted our course accordingly, and we also reduced our expenditures. So we are all right there.
Okay.
So, and Cheryl, I just want to make sure everybody listening understands, and no disrespect meant to anybody here, but Facebook posts are not necessarily the best place to get the most accurate and up-to-date information. The budget presentations are, the city website budget is, and I would really encourage people to ask their questions from the formal standpoint of those avenues, or making a call to City Hall, asking a question of the mayor on the city webpage, and we can get to the most up-to-date information. As Heidi just showed, we've had a considerable change in what our revenue projections were from a few, even a few weeks ago to now, after more work was done and more data came in. So appreciate everybody's work on keeping up to date with the most accurate information. Cheryl, didn't want to cut you off. Did you have another comment or question, or are you?
No, I'm done. But I just want to say, I don't sit and comb through the budget. I glance at it, and you know what caught my eye was flower pot budget, the bench budget, and the tourism budget. The rest of it, I just like, oh, okay. So, so that's where my priorities are. Anyway, no, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Do we have anybody else from the public who'd like to ask a question during this public hearing on the budget, on revenues? I don't see any hands. Council, are you satisfied, or do you have any other questions for Heidi? Councilmember Wood?
I actually don't have a question for Heidi, but I believe Heidi might have a comment for us.
Well, I was just going to respond to Cheryl's concern about the tourism budget. Those are special funds that we get from the tax that ratepayers to stay in hotel rooms, and they're specifically designated for use for tourism promotion in our area. And so by law, we can't spend them on anything else.
Thank you, Heidi.
That fund, and we don't spend it on anything else.
Yeah, and good point, because we're going to be hopefully revitalizing the LTAC, the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, and see if we have some community groups who can utilize that money to promote tourism in the new 2021 wave of tourism that's going to flood through Yelm when we're back down, when we're back in full swing phase 4. So we're looking forward to that. There's my optimism showing through. Okay, that would pretty much sum up what we need to talk about there. So I'm going to end the public hearing on revenue at 7:13 p.m. Hopefully I'm making Lori proud of me for following those rules. And we'll now go into the new agenda item 7B, which is again the discussion that EJ brought up, wanting to move the date of the next study session to the, I believe it is the 4th, Wednesday, following the normal date. Is there any discussion, or actually let's make that a motion start and then we can have the discussion. EJ?
Oh, I move that we move the study session scheduled for November 3rd, 2020 to September 5th, 2020.
November 5th.
November 5th, sorry.
No.
Second.
Is there any other discussion? Yes, Joe. Councilmember Pino.
Thanks, Mayor. I think this is smart to do. Thank you, Councilmember Curry, for doing this. It allows us, like many other folks around our nation, to watch the election results, or at least the ones that are coming into that time, and see what's going on here in our state and our country. So thank you. Kudos to you.
That's over.
And let it reflect that the actual date is November 4th. That will be moving the, not the 5th. If we want the Wednesday. Thank you. Tad? That was it. All right, so the motion and second was to move the study session to November 4th at 6 p.m. We can support that. All in favor?
Aye.
Well,
Aye.
All right, and that was unanimous. So
no, it was not.
it was not? I thought I heard you say aye.
No, I was trying to say that I have a, what's it called? Intercity transit meeting at the same time. So I can do one of the two, which I think the study session is probably a little more important. So I'll have to miss the intercity transit meeting for that. But I'm okay with moving the date. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I thought I saw you in that general direction earlier. Molly, are those recorded? The IT meetings?
Yeah, actually they are. They are because of COVID. They're on the Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then you can attend virtually afterward, I suppose.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for considering that. E.G., I wish you'd brought that up 4 years ago.
I did.
I know you did. Thank you for that. Okay. Where'd it go? All right. That is all of our new business. We don't have any old business. We'll move right into department updates. Michael?
Thank you, Mayor. Can everyone hear me okay? Perfect. I will keep this short and sweet. I just have two great updates for you. The first is, I have a prop here. I was going to share my video. Let me see if I can do that. There we go. Now I officially look like an air traffic controller in front of all of you. So the two updates are, one is coming up here shortly on October 28th. There will be a virtual reality tour of the new water reclamation facility, and we encourage all the council and all the public that is interested in this to attend. It's going to be at the community center on the 28th, and you can pretty much come anytime between 4 and 6 p.m. It's going to be a really neat, innovative way to show what the future concept of the water reclamation facility will look like. So encourage everyone to come there. The second update I wanted to give you is on our big rocks. One of the biggest things that we're doing is trying to secure water rights for the future of the city. And we've had great conversations with the two tribes in this area, the Squaxin and the Nisqually. We just received, and I'll be sending this out to all of you, a letter from the Nisqually giving wonderful illustration of the historical partnership between the city and the tribe working in this watershed, and also providing support for what we plan to propose to ecology. So we're getting really close to that stage. We have a couple more meetings with them. We've had government to government conversations with the tribes, and we'll continue our conversations with ecology. And then as promised, we'll come back and have a study session with all of you. I know it'll be in the middle of the budget, but it's important just to walk through what was proposed, what the analysis and the options were, and what all this looks like. And then if ecology can participate, we'd love to have them there as well to answer any questions, because of the 5 pilot projects authorized by the legislature, we will be the first one to present. And so this is really important for all the pilot projects. It's really important for ecology, and it's really important for our tribal partners. So more to come on that, but just wanted to let you know that those relationships are positive, and the support is there, and we're getting really close to making that application in a formal way. That concludes my update. I'd be glad to answer any questions, but I know we have the workshops to get to on public safety. You're on mute, Mayor.
Thanks, Michael. So we will move on then to Councilmember Blair.
All right, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All right. So just to go back, I know the last time I sent you guys all an email about the flow control thing with SWAC. That was not a vote. Like, I misunderstood the email, so we did not vote on that. I did hear back from Councilmember Carmody about that. we talked a little bit. I appreciated her perspective, and it kind of opened my eyes a little bit more to that whole subject. But that's something that's going to be being discussed over the next probably 3 to 6 months before a vote even happens on it. Basically what that is, if anyone doesn't remember, it'll be an ordinance that says all solid waste has to go to the facilities. All solid waste within Thurston County has to go to the county facilities. But I know they've got to figure out the hazardous waste part of it. I don't know if that's going to be an exemption or if they have to update our facilities to handle it. But other than that, I'll keep you in the loop on what's going on with that. And then the public safety one today, I know council members Wood and Stillwell will go into more, but I appreciated that Yelm PD they just wrapped up reaching out to a lot of the homeless population around, kind of get an idea of who they are and ask them kind of some questions about how they got to that position, what led them there, what kind of services they're getting now, what they might need, and throwing out offers of help if they could. I thought that was pretty cool. Some interesting numbers that came out of that. But yeah, other than that, I got nothing else.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Carmody?
I don't have a whole lot. I have intercity transit next week, but I would like to bring something up that one of our citizens brought up to me. She lives on Railroad or Railway Avenue out here, and it's currently zoned industrial. But a lot of people out there just own little hobby farms, and they're not allowed to improve their lots at all. They're not allowed to change the buildings or anything like that because it is zoned industrial, and they're all kind of grandfathered in at that point. A lot of those people are not on city water or city sewer. They have wells and their own septic systems. But what I was thinking was, I've had people come to me before and say, hey, why am I zoned industrial? Is there any way that I can change the zoning of our properties? And this woman said that she was going to go around and talk to all of her neighbors and see what they want to do. And I was thinking that, it's just a little strip that's sort of southeast of NP Road. So it's kind of sandwiched in between NP Road and Railway Avenue. It's all right now, it's all zoned industrial, but people live there. And I was thinking that we could change that from industrial into residential and then transfer some of that industrial zoning over to that 640 acres, which could, if you think about it, might have better access to the highway for future use. We would just be swapping out one residential area for one residential area and one industrial area for another industrial area. So anyway, I would really like to see what the staff has to say about this. And so I'd like to suggest that we add this to the study session for the November 4th meeting, just so we can start talking about it. What are the options for these folks? Is this something that's even feasible? So I'd like to add that to the study session. Thank you.
We'll take that note, and I know that Grant can provide us with an overview of the process that it would take for the council to, the planning commission, the council to approve a zoning change.
Yeah.
So,
thank you. Yeah, the more information that we can get, the better, because if there's a way that we can do it, I would love to. But if we can't do it, we need to be able to explain really clearly why we can't. So thanks, guys.
Thank you. Councilmember Curry?
Well, I was at the farmer's market last Saturday, and I'm so excited that they're going to be here in November and December, at least one Saturday a month. And the senior center has decided to extend their night of horror, day of horror. It's scary. Their little walkthrough thing. It's wonderful. Everybody should go and just go through it. It's a good support for the senior center, and it's turning out to be a good money raiser. And that's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Stillwell.
I attended the Public Safety Committee meeting this afternoon, and it was really good, riveting information from Chief Stansel and the Assistant Chief. We talked about the Capital Metro ITT, the past legal review from the cities that were having troubles with that. I'll talk about that more in a second. We are looking for community members to be two non-law enforcement citizens for transparency of investigations. For that, this will fulfill our requirements for the I-90 and the SHB from 2019. I can't remember the number. So we're looking for those. We've had a few applications for, I believe it was, they have to pass a background check and take some special training for that. We're waiting for the grant awards from the Nisqually tribe that we talked about last month. Detective testing is November 2nd. As Detective DeVore's time in that position has come to an end almost. And we're in the final stages of our lateral hiring of an officer to be announced after that's completed. And that concludes my share of that brief.
Hey, Tad, can I ask a question?
Sure, hopefully I can.
Yeah. So I had somebody ask me about that committee, and they're interested in serving on it, but they live outside the city limits. Is there a specific reason that people have to live inside the city limits? Is that part of the law?
Yes, actually, I did have somebody approach me as well that lives right outside the city, and it is part of that law that they are living within the city limits.
So can I
Go ahead,
speak
Chief.
to that real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've had that question come up a couple times, and the way we've interpreted, we've double checked to make sure that is the case. And so to answer that is that if we can get folks that live in the community, then that is the first preference. However, if we have a lack of applicants within the city limits, we have the ability to expand that to other folks that have some sort of connection to this community, whether they work in the community, teach in the community, something like that. So we do have the ability to expand if needed, but the law is kind of specific to showing proof of residency within that community for that particular board. That is different, however, Molly, for the Citizens Advisory Panel, which is more vague as far as recruitment for that. So, but as of right now, we have a few folks that have applied, and we're hoping we get enough, but if not, we can expand that.
Right. Council, is that it, Tad?
Yes, it is.
Councilmember Wood, did Tad leave you anything this time?
Not much, but that's all right. That's all right. We're being proactive on the detective replacement process. We're ahead of the game on that. The lateral police officer, we do have an outstanding candidate that will only need an additional 8 weeks of training. I also, that was with the Public Safety Committee. I also attended the Transportation Policy Board meeting where they have completed the move of the offices from where it's been for the last, I guess the last decade at least, to a new building that's been refurbed and updated for them. I expect that we'll get a chance to see that eventually after we get past the Zoom meeting situation. We also talked about, we updated the diversity statement. The staff reviewed the council's updated diversity statement and summarized recent activities relating to implementing the statement. And staff provided an overview of the climate mitigation plan, and more to come on that. And that's my report.
Thank you. So I don't forget, because I didn't put it in my notes, the opportunity to see the new building that the TRPC is in would come the first Friday of November at the regularly scheduled TRPC meeting. Starts at 8 o'clock in the morning. There's actually a couple of things on the agenda I think council members might be interested in reviewing, some presentations. So you could log into that, and part of that is going to be a virtual tour of their new surroundings, which is an entire block away from where they have been for the last 10 years, but it's a better building, lower prices. Thanks for that. Councilmember DePino.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, all my meetings already occurred and I reported them earlier this month. I have an EDC meeting, a Thurston EDC meeting coming up tomorrow. And I'll report on that in the next meeting. That's it.
Okay, thank you. And Councilmember Kaminsky.
I had a finance committee meeting and I honestly don't remember who's on that committee anymore because I think this is the third time I've been there all by myself. And we talked about the budget. So somebody please show up. EDC, the next meeting, I intend to talk about what happened to the potential donation of the park on the corner of 2nd Avenue that I noticed is incorporated into the downtown corridor plan. So I want to bring that up as a topic next time. And Thurston County Thrives. We had Marianne Oguero with the health department come and speak, and I didn't really enjoy the meeting all that much. We have now as a county fallen down to number 9 on the health Richter scale. I think we were 3rd or 4th before, but now we're down by 9. The big concern was there's a proliferation of cancer in the county, and the big discussion that ensued was about inequity in health disparities. And I don't really enjoy these conversations because I don't think anybody should have cancer. And so for me, an analogy is I'm looking into a dirty bowl of fish water and I'm arguing and deciding and pontificating about why more bluefish are dying than the goldfish. And my solution and my thoughts are, well, could we change the water and everybody will be healthy? And I tried to bring up some I realized they're large sweeping ideas, but they really kind of fell on deaf ears. So all I got were blank stares. And I said, as a county, are we able to make large changes like this that can really impact health? And after a blank stare, I just got the answer, well, if it does involve inequity, we can do it. And then it all fell on deaf ears. So I didn't really enjoy that. And I just didn't look too smart for asking the big question. So that was my experience. And any updates, Mayor Foster, on when we will be meeting live?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've asked staff to start looking at an opportunity for us to move back into the community center because we really don't have the ability to do it in our existing council chambers. And we could do it at the community center, but they still have some technical work. And we're going to follow the guidelines that come down from the health department on when we can do that safely. But it's not going to be for the next couple of meetings for sure, next few meetings anyway, for sure.
Okay.
But we'll keep you updated on what opportunities the council has to decide on that as they come in.
And one more thing I forgot about the River Council. They are doing tree plantings between now and November 3rd. There's 2 locations, one on Peisner Road at the very end, Powell Creek, and the other one in McKenna along the river, I believe. So if anybody's interested, just go on the website and register. That's my report.
Very good. Hey, and thank you for trying. Keep those ideas coming because that's where they start. Really quickly, council, and I know you're smiling when I say that, but in the last week, in addition to the regular stuff going on around here, I was able to attend the Risk Management Services Agency Expo. There were some fantastic presentations. Anytime you see a conference coming up from AWC or RMSA, please try to take advantage of those opportunities. They are really good. We had one on leveraging hope in the midst of uncertainty, which stressed things like working on calm, focused attention on creating a new future together. And it was, you know, it's informative to how we could move forward as a city government to our new future. Another day we had an update on policing in Washington State relevant to I-940. And as the Public Safety Committee members and the chief have already told us, and the chief will tell us more, we as a community police department are way ahead in many areas, including the mandatory training of de-escalation, mandatory training on implicit and explicit bias, and alternatives to booking and connection to mental health resources from the field. So it was really gratifying to see that we are ahead of the curve on those mandates from 940. Then we also had another effective leadership presentation that included focusing on the long game, realizing that we need to modify our workplace and promote well-being with our employees so that we can continue to serve our community. And then yesterday, I was involved with the AWC Cities on Tap, they call it, and it was 17 different municipalities from across Washington State and some support staff from AWC. One of the things that we talked about was the legislative priorities identified by the AWC lobbyists, which are transportation revenue package, state shared revenues, and statewide policing reforms like the independent investigation team, again, that we are already forming. So those will be also recommended that the council adopt those as legislative priorities along with some others that we might come up with. And I would encourage council to start thinking about that. We need to present, you know, a package of these priorities so that when we're speaking to our legislators, we're all giving them the same message. But those three that I mentioned from AWC are also represented in Thurston Regional Planning Councils, in the South Sound Military Communities Partnership, and even the tribe are all focusing on those same three basic legislative priorities. So that is my report on. I couldn't see your hand before, Joe, because I had my notes up, but go ahead, please.
No, this is perfect timing. I just raised it. Would it be possible to have a study session in December to solidify our legislative agenda?
Absolutely. Yeah, we can put that on the agenda and for a study session for sure. And we would really, honestly, last couple of years we haven't gotten a lot of feedback from council on other priorities that we've represented. And so we would really encourage you to bring them forward so that we can agree on them as a council. And I'm reading a chat that I just want to make sure that you all have a chance to look at from Councilmember Blair. It's reference to the Finance Committee meetings. He talks about not checking his email until the evening. I would stress the, you know, the committee chairs are good about sending out the information, council. This should be on your calendars well in advance. You know, I don't know if we should really necessarily have to rely on our department heads to remind you of a meeting that you should have calendared, and it should be important to you if you want to continue serving on that subcommittee. So please make the effort to check that on your calendar and be prepared. Your participation in those makes you a much stronger council when we come to making important decisions. So thank you for that. Now, having ended our regular business, we are now going to adjourn the regular meeting. And for the people in the audience attending, you'll still be able to attend this. This is just ending our regular business meeting. We're going to adjourn into a more informal budget session for public safety presentations by the police department and the Yelm Municipal Court. So stay tuned if you're interested in that. Otherwise, we'll see you at the next scheduled council meeting. And Chief? Oh, so we should officially adjourn the regular business meeting.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. That ends the regular meeting, and now we'll go into the informal budget workshop.
Okay, thank you. So this presentation by the police department and the court, we'll go ahead and go first. Sonia asked that we go first, so we'll go ahead and go first here. I'm going to try to share my screen so I can pull my PowerPoint up. Okay. Hopefully everybody can see my screen.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. We'll dive right into the first one. So I'm going to try to make this as short as sweet as possible. Just try to give you the most details we can in a short amount of time. This is just our responsibilities page. We update this every couple of years to make sure we're still hitting. Obviously, the patrol, investigations, evidence, crime prevention, school, emergency management, county regional participation, social service advocates. Talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. Community involvement and partnerships. And at times we serve as firefighters and EMTs until it's safe for them to arrive. Eric, that was for you.
Thank you very much, Chief.
Yes. For the 2019, 2020 major accomplishments for us, well, we did some pretty significant restructuring at the end of 2019. Created the position of assistant chief, and which left 2 vacancies in the sergeants. So 2 patrol officers were promoted to the position of sergeants. We developed an internal emergency traffic management plan. So when I-5 shuts down and a complete closure occurs, we have a process and a plan in place, not only internally, but from a regional perspective as well. So that's and since we've had the plan in place, knock on wood, I-5 has not been shut down. But we know it will happen, and hopefully we can deal with it and assist motorists a little bit better. And it's been an absolute pleasure working with Cody and Public Works on this to help them be a part of that plan and help us move traffic around more efficiently when that occurs. We implemented dictation software in the vehicles with the assistance of our IT department. Where officers, instead of typing and taking the time to type up reports, it can dictate a report, much more efficient, much more safe. Instead of looking at a screen typing when you're parked in your patrol car somewhere, you have the ability to use dictation and the report comes out printed that way. We expanded our representation on legal and regional boards and committees. We assigned 2 officers to the multi-jurisdiction hostage negotiation team. We developed and hosted the first Citizens Police Academy in 2019. We already have we're working on the plans to conduct one in 2021 as soon as we can. But we're excited to expand on the Citizens Police Academy from the first one and recruit more folks to learn about what we do. We completed the comprehensive emergency management plan. Implementation of Lexipol, that's a professional policy standards. This was about a 3 to 4 month process to bring in a new policy for our department that is much more current. It's basically the highest standards that you can get as far as policies and procedures go. It was hosted, or actually sponsored, 50% was hosted or sponsored by AWC. And because of the liability prevention that comes along with having Lexipol. It's an outstanding policy, and you'll hear a little bit more about that as we move forward. We just went live with that within the last 2 to 3 weeks, and so we're very excited about that. We implemented online reporting options for residents, so those individuals that maybe have crimes occurring in their neighborhoods, or you know, they see a crime occurring and they just don't want to call 911. They don't want to bother 911. As much as you tell them that's what it's for, they just don't want to use 911. And so this is an online reporting option that people can go through the website and actually submit reports. So we're hoping to get a better accurate count of maybe criminal activity that's occurring, so we can adjust our emphasis patrols going forward. We created a part-time SRO, community resource officer, last year. So we expanded our SRO to basically 1 1/4 officers, and that remaining time is taken up as a community resource officer. And we have that officer very busy. He's currently also, part of his title is the homeless liaison officer, which is part of our Lexipol policy as well. And then we made significant development progress on implementation of Initiative 940. And you'll hear a little bit more about that as well. Our 2021 to 2022 goals moving forward. We'd like to add 2 more officers as the budget allows, just to meet the growing service demands in the community. We'd like to increase officer and supervisor training. to meet the demands and expectations of the profession as they're changing rapidly, as we all know. Advance our comprehensive emergency management plan and integrate training and COOP planning, which is the continuity of operations. In the next 2 years, we will have the task of replacing multiple officers that are eligible to retire. Anywhere between 2 and 4 officers in the next 2 years will more than likely retire from our force. Continue to develop and advance our succession planning and training for these retirements that are coming, so we don't see a downturn when these folks do retire. Expand the reserve officer program. Obviously, with Joe leaving, we're probably going to need to at least hire 5 more additional reserves to make up what Joe did, and so we're in the process of trying to recruit some reserves for that. Obviously, implement the Citizens Advisory Panel for the Yelm Municipal Code. Joe, question?
Yeah, I mean, feel free to finish up here on this page, but I had a question from something earlier about the 2 additional commission officers. Do you want to finish or do you want me to ask?
You just want me to go through this whole thing first and then just keep a track of that?
Sounds good. Yep, sounds good.
Because I may cover some of that. So expand non-lethal options and explore and implement video options for officers and vehicles. Full implementation of I-940 and all required components, which is training, independent investigation, non-commissioned oversight, and instructor certifications. Expand involvement with local and regional groups to address and assist with the unsheltered population and mental illness. Research options and implement, if feasible, a canine narcotics tracking program. Early recruitment. Our buddy Tyler. This is our commission officers, and it just goes back to give you historical perspective over the last 14 years of where we were, where we are today. Some of the comparables we use, some of these cities right here fall into that category of what would be considered comparables based on population, based on sales tax revenue, based on property tax revenues, things like that. Kind of where we fall in there. And this we did this for per capita comparables, just so you have an idea. When we look at the number of officers per capita, we try to use some sort of comparables, and these are the most accurate we could come up with. And this is the staffing and per capita projection, and anything going forward from 21 on is obviously projections based on growth. 2020, the blue is where we currently are. The red is using the per capita comparables that I just showed you from comparable cities. This is our existing structure right now. This is how when we restructured, this is how it is. The highlighted yellow is just it's a vacant position. It's not a funded position. We currently don't have funds to fill that position. And so that's why it's just highlighted. I just wanted to make it clear that that position is not currently in our budget or part of this department, but that is the most recent structure that we have. And emergency management. So in addition to police services, emergency management is a very major part of what we do. I serve as the emergency management coordinator for the city by Yelm Municipal Code. This is who is on the board. We meet monthly. I'm also the current chair of the Thurston County Emergency Management Board. We do executive seminars, emergency preparedness events. Our hazard mitigation plan was completed in 2018, expires in 24, CEMP plan 19. And we did a long-term recovery exercise in 2019, and our planning efforts are underway for the 2022 Cascadia event, which may be delayed a little bit because of the pandemic, but it's still at this point scheduled for June of 2022. So the next piece here is kind of a crisis response, and this is something we've been working on for the last couple months, and in particular, Assistant Chief Carlson. This has been his area that he's really been able to dive into and look at what resources we have available, what resources we could use, and it kind of goes along with what we're currently doing, and kind of gives you an idea of what we currently have in place going forward. So I'll turn this piece over to Assistant Chief Carlson.
Thank you, Chief. Everybody can hear me? So the two Olympic Health Recovery Services and Thurston Mason Crisis Triage were two of the organizations that we use. The Thurston Mason Crisis Triage is more of a facility that we would utilize, and it just gives an option in regards to individuals that are in mental crisis that also committed a crime. We have that as an option to go to that facility where the crime that they committed, their mental crisis outweighed that, to where they'd give them an option to be able to go to this facility and get treatment. Unfortunately, with that facility, it's not always available as far as beds. They only have currently 10 available, but we have utilized that and can utilize that as an option. The Olympic Health and Recovery Service, we use mostly the designated crisis responders, or something that we use often enough. A lot of the officers use those. Basically, those are counselors that come out and triage. We can also call them over the phone, do a triage over the phone. They'll send us via fax paperwork that we can utilize to take them to St. Pete's for a mental evaluation. It just kind of speeds up the process sometimes for us, and some officers have used that to speed that process up. And one of it's been about a year, just under a year since I've been on patrol. And one of the ones that aren't on these slides that I use that I talked to Chief about is telecare. Telecare is when I would go to a situation where folks, a family member would call in regards to a family member that they feels in a mental crisis and they wanted us to check on them. The couple incidences that come to my mind right offhand is when I would get there and talk to them, I would realize that there's no crime involved in the call that I was just dispatched to. I would do my best to communicate with them, but telecare was a resource for me to call. They would actually pre-COVID would send folks out and just give them some counsel and give them some direction for their mental crisis. Recently, due to COVID, they will still do that over the phone. And again, these are for the folks that really are not at the point of being a danger to themselves or others. It's just kind of a softer way to get them help for that mental evaluation. So those are kind of some of the organizations that we utilize today on somewhat of a regular basis, not crazy often, but they are available to us. And the last piece there is where Officer Moody has gone out and basically made contact with our homeless population. As the weather gets colder, I think that's something that we need to kind of keep our finger on the pulse for, to provide them with services. Officer Moody went through and talked to the 13 homeless individuals, and it should be stated that these folks were not under arrest and they're not detained in any way. It is completely voluntary for them to talk to him. And he just asked them some general questions. He had about 9 questions that he asked them, and it gave us some idea of what we were looking at, helped us give some potential direction of resource for them. And I think it was super helpful to kind of get us an idea. And the officers during the winter, we do go out and provide blankets and other necessities that they may need. We do watch after our homeless and take care of them the best we can. Any questions on that slide at all?
Yeah, I do have a question. So the community resource officer, he mainly deals with his big thing is the homeless population. Is that correct? Hello?
Yeah, I'll answer that, Molly.
Okay.
So what he does, he kind of a hodgepodge. He kind of picks up all the pieces that are left outside of the patrol end of things. He also helps with the code enforcement of abandoned vehicles or abandoned homes or different situations like that. If there's encampments, he goes to these encampments and works with the individuals in the encampment to find them more suitable locations to go prior to it being cleaned up, for example, and things like that. And why we were able to do this over the last couple of months is primarily he would be helping in the schools since September. His piece in the schools would have been kicked into full gear by September, but because of the school situation of obviously being homeschooled, we have an opportunity to expand and do some other things, and that's kind of why we shifted his focus a little bit more to this, to the homeless issue and the mental health issue, to really do an inventory of what do we have available, what do they need, and just and really the intent is that so we could share this with our officers, patrol officers, so they knew who they were contacting and they knew what their situations were. And so it's just to better educate us in any group that wants the information we have. We have a fantastic slideshow that actually breaks down all the answers to their questions. And it was very educational to us to hear some of their answers as far as what they needed and what they currently use. So the community resource officers, like a crime prevention officer, he goes to schools, he goes to businesses. It's all about trying to pick up the pieces of everything that patrol can't get to on a routine daily basis.
Okay, thanks. So it's great that he's doing that, but when school does start back up, he's going to have to go back to the school, correct?
Yeah, so right now he's designated as part-time in the schools. And so our intent with this position moving forward is to still try to balance out what we've started. Our intention is to do this every 6 months, to go back out and recontact these individuals in 6 months to see if it's changed, how many more people we have or less people, if their situation's worse or better. And so the idea is, and you'll see on the very next slide that I'll move forward here, is it's designated in our policy. So we have, with our new Lexipol policy that I was explaining earlier, one of the policies that we've now adopted through that is a homeless community liaison. And if you take a few minutes and read through this, you'll see that we're kind of excited about possibly meeting some of these requirements, or all these requirements actually, the best we can.
Okay, can I guess where I'm actually going with this is what happens when somebody's having an argument with their neighbor, or somebody's having a marital dispute? You know, I'm really still struggling with the whole armed officer going out there, and especially since, you know, your officers aren't trained to deal with stuff like, you know, community mediation, you know, marital disputes. That's the kind of thing that I'm really worried about here. And, you know, we get people saying, you know, that they called the cops, and, you know, the cops were really nice, but it was scary to see that this person had a gun on their hip, and really, they really didn't need one. They just needed, you know, these people just wanted somebody to help mediate this problem, you know, and like a neighbor to neighbor dispute. And I guess that's where I'm going with this. Is this community officer ever going to be utilized as a community mediator, not as a policeman? Or are you guys ever are there any plans to ever get that kind of person in? Somebody that does not carry a weapon?
Yeah, I'll let Rob, if you want to just speak a little bit to that, and then I'll tag on, because we definitely have.
Yeah, I mean, you guys can keep going. I just,
yep, no,
a simple yes or no answer, you know, is this something that you're looking for in the future?
Yep.
No, totally understand. I think that just from my experience in those situations, and you're right, I've been dispatched to many of those in my career. And I think over time, not only with, we do get some training in regards to, maybe not extensive, it was the job that we did every day, but we do go through some training in regards to that mediation. But we also have that civil law information that we can provide when it comes to neighbor dispute. A lot of times that I've found in those situations is that the knowledge that I had with the civil law in regards to that specific incident was enough to give them some resolution with that. But it's also in the presentation and the officers and how they give that presentation. We're not, regardless if we're carrying a gun or wearing our vests and all that, I think that, you know, how we present ourselves, and I think our officers do a pretty good job of that to these folks. I think that, you know, I've never had a situation where I felt like it was something that I shouldn't have been dispatched to. And if it was something like I'd mentioned before with telecare, if it was something that I was dispatched to that I felt like that I need to provide more information that may be out of my realm of knowledge, we provide them with information and direction to go to get the answers that they may need. So as far as in the future, if that's an option, you know, I have a hard time seeing that because I've also been to those same situations that were beginning to be a mediation situation that turned into a disturbance. So I don't know how that looks. Is it a possibility? It could be, but at this point, I just don't. In my 27 years of being in law enforcement, I've never been in a situation where I felt like that I wasn't helpful and wasn't able to provide them direction to get answers that they needed, whether it be on the spot on the call or for them to follow up later.
Molly, just one thing to add on to that. I think Rob did allude to that a little bit is when we reached out to the officers and we started to pull our calls, our types of calls out, is even though a lot of calls turn into, once we're there, into more counseling sessions, we're rarely ever dispatched that way. So what I mean by that is it's usually dispatched as a potential crime or a crime occurring. So domestic is a great example. Domestics can be some of the most violent calls we go to because of the human emotion involved. And so rarely are we ever dispatched to a call where it's not dispatched to us as a crime. Now, once we get there and we realize, okay, no crime has been committed, and really these people need different help, right? They don't need, you know, police help, they need different help. And so that's really the challenge, I think, in looking at what calls could we send non-armed mediators to without using police services for those types of calls. And the challenge is that rarely are we ever dispatched to just a mediation call. We're dispatched to a potential crime or crime occurring, and then once we get there, okay, this is a different call. So that's one of the challenges as far as what we talked about. And then the other piece about the training is, and the de-escalation training. So Initiative 940 that we've been talking about most of the night will include an additional 40 hours of de-escalation mediation type training that all officers are going to be required to attend. That's in addition to the crisis intervention training that we already have to do on a yearly basis. So I mentioned that in the sense that Washington State itself, and particularly due to I-940, is so far ahead of the rest of the country when it comes to required training for law enforcement officers. I-940 is not normal in other parts of the country. It will be for us. Once we will have an instructor. We will actually have an instructor who goes through a 2-week course to become an instructor in mediation training. Then we have to obtain that training on a yearly basis going forward, 40 hours every I think 2 years for every officer. It's already in the academy, so all new officers going to the academy already are required to get this 40 hours of mediation type training. And so it's not a fix-all, and it's definitely not a perfect solution for a lot of these types of calls we go to, but it definitely is trying to get the officers more in line of helping these folks in a non-law enforcement manner, as opposed to, you know, the cops are here and somebody's going to jail. And so, again, we will have an instructor in that as well that'll have to train all of our folks and go forward. So I think Rob said it, is that we literally look and talk about that often, is what can we use to help these folks so they're not repeat, so we're not going back to the same house over and over and over. You know, a mediation type issue. And it is frustrating. I mean, it's frustrating for us. And I know it's frustrating for them as well. And so there's definitely not a perfect solution, but I think the training that we're going to get that is already given, and then additional training that we're going to add to that will definitely help. But we're not opposed to, you know, looking at other options going forward as how can we help meet the needs of the community by any means. You agree with that, Rob?
Yeah, and I was just going to add that, you know, in the time that I've been in law enforcement, there's been many unfortunate incidences that happened that's changed our profession. And I truly can say that at first it might be a little difficult for us to kind of swallow, but I truly can say that there's nothing as far as the change that we've received or I've received in the time that I've been in law enforcement that has not improved our service to our communities. And I truly think that this Initiative 940 is going to achieve that as well. The whole de-escalation piece, it's only going to make us better at what we do. The evolution of law enforcement, I think, is going to the positive. Sometimes it might be difficult to see that a little bit, but I'm optimistic to think that all these changes that Washington State has put out for us to do for our profession is only going to make us better. And like I said, there's never been a situation where we've had to have those changes that hasn't made us better. So I think that Initiative 940, like Chief said, is going to be huge for us. And it really, you know, is exciting to kind of experience, to see how it does change our profession.
Anything else on that, Molly?
No, thank you so much. I appreciate your answers.
Okay, so that kind of wraps up. I know it's only 11 pages and you guys were expecting a lot more from me, but we did narrow it down from 20 to 11 pages just for you tonight. And so, you know, there's specific questions about what we gave here on the slides. I know, Joe, you had one earlier. Did you want to ask that now, or did I answer that with the following slide?
No, I was asking, it said you were seeking 2 additional officers. And I noticed in the mayor's proposed budget that he did put in for a replacement officer for one that was retiring. And we're anticipating, what, 2 officers retiring though next year? Up to 2 at least. And I'm just wondering if the 2 additional officers were in the budget or they were not.
So the 1 additional officer that was approved, actually, I believe in the budget amendment in April, is still on the books as a 1 additional officer, as opposed to the normal 15 commission. So the idea is that we'll have 1 additional officer to help absorb the loss of these retirements that are coming. Of course, there's no guarantee that these retirements happen when they say they're going to happen. And so that's a tough, you can't obviously force someone to retire. You can't ask them to retire. And so it's kind of a, you know, it's moving pieces to try to figure out which one will go when. And so I'm pleased that we have 1 additional to help us absorb that. Absorbing 1 loss is one thing. Trying to absorb the loss of 2 officers at the same time would be very difficult to do. And so this new officer that we're going through into lateral right now, he is the 1 additional officer that is in place to help support the loss of the retirements.
Perhaps I'm not being as clear as I need to be. In your budget request to the executive branch, you requested 2 additional officers. Did you receive those 2 additional officers?
No, the request was for 2 additional commissioned officers, permanent commissioned officers, if that's what you're asking me.
Thank you, Mayor, thank you, Chief. And yes, it is what I was asking. I think if you could go to the slide that shows how many total officers we have, and then and then there was another slide that also had projections of I believe it was projection. There it is, per capita. And I just want the council to be, you know, really realize this. When we're sitting at 15 officers and that number is increasing, we're approving apartment complexes left and right here in Yelm. We're growing the city by a lot. And when we have the same maintenance level of police officers in Yelm, that gap grows higher and higher every year. It's hard to catch up. And so I would really implore the council to really consider adding 2 officers as the chief requested in his budget request to the executive branch. Really please take consideration on that. And this, this has anything to do with any political ideology or anything. It's just that we are growing at a tremendous rate here. And I don't believe that we're adequately providing and I know the chief is going to make do and assistant chief is going to make do with the resources made available to them and provide the best security for our folks here in Yelm and safety for everybody. But it makes their job a lot harder when they don't have the resources that they should have. The chief isn't requesting these additional officers because they're nice to have. He's requesting because the projections are needed. And please correct me if I'm wrong, chief, if you're projecting just for the heck of it, but I would imagine you're projecting for our future needs.
Yeah, so when we look at a biennial budget, obviously the challenge in a biennial budget is to try to predict what the future happens. And when you do a single year budget, it's still a challenge, but it's only a 1 year. And so when you look at a 2-year budget, you're with the growth of Yelm and the challenges and the changes occurring in Yelm, it does make it more challenging. And so when you ask for particular staffing, you are looking at population or impacts from growth, whether it's business or residential. And, that's just part of my responsibility as the chief is to look at what's coming down the pipe, not only where we are today, but, where could we be next year and the year after that. And so, any request that I put forward is, in my opinion, in the best interest of the department and the community.
And chief, last thing, those 2 additional officers, that would bring us up from the 15 to 17, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And that's not who knows what you need in 2023 or 2024. It looks like we'll have to hopefully do another budget amendment to increase the officers to keep up with growth if that's indeed what we have as population. So again, thank you for your service and thank you for putting this budget proposal together.
Councilmember Kaminsky, then Wood.
Yes, I have a question for the chief now that we have him trapped on the camera. I had emailed you this before, chief, but I didn't get a response and it's kind of relevant. I can already hear people snickering about the flower pots for the main road, but included in that money was the potential for the downtown corridor's extra city lights that we talked about 5 years ago. So my question is that still a relevant idea for public safety?
Well, in regards to lighting, lighting anywhere is a benefit to public safety. So if there was a way to potentially illuminate certain areas in our community, that definitely is a deterrent. It's a proven crime deterrent is lighting. And so I think that's what you're asking, Terry, is that right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so I think the conversation we had, and I think it was more like 8 years ago, but it could have been 5. It was, in other communities, they light their trees when you come through town. There's trees that line the sidewalks. They light them year round at night. And so it was a beautification committee that I was on with Terry. And that was one of the discussions we had was lighting up our downtown corridor, the trees, because we do have so many trees that line our main road, would be to light them up. And then a side benefit of obviously just the beautification of it would be just as more of a deterrent in certain areas that are currently darker.
Okay, so if I get some money, will you please help me?
Yeah, I can put the lights up, Terry. Is that what you're looking for? I mean, I got a ladder.
And the second point is, should you be successful with the canine program, I would like to foster a German Shepherd puppy for the program.
Oh, you would?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it
Tracy
has to be a German Shepherd.
I think Tracy might want to do that too. So I'll let the two of you arm wrestle.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tracy?
I have a question for the chief. How is it seems to me that recently what I've heard is we've been having some issues as far as interest in people wanting to be involved in the police force, not just locally, but nationally. So I'm wondering, in your opinion, what kind of impact is this going to have on recruitment if your approach is we're looking to start hiring police officers that we can send to domestic violence situations unarmed. You know, I grew up as a child with a stepfather that was pretty abusive, and I'm thankful the officers came with, you know, weapons available. Not that they ever needed to use them, but just the intimidation value calmed my stepfather down and made him stop doing what he was doing to you know, to his family. So I'm just curious, in your opinion, what kind of impact is that going to have on recruitment if you're literally trying to hire somebody to go deal with this situation? And I'm asking you, how comfortable would you be in a domestic violence situation that you were being called out on if you didn't have the means to defend yourself?
Yeah, so what I will say to that is that we would never have a commissioned officer be unarmed. I think, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, maybe the conversation wasn't that clear. I think when Molly asked that question, it was more about sending someone that was a non-police officer, a non-armed police officer, to these types of social disturbance type issues that are non-criminal related. So for us, our focus from the police department side is when we get dispatched to a crime or a potential crime in progress, we're trained to respond to that there is a potential crime occurring. And so we're never going to send an officer to a domestic disturbance or anything like that without the proper weapons that we've been trained to carry and use appropriately. And so the only thing I would ever say that may be beneficial down the road is to have somebody as a resource that once we get there and once we determine no crime has been committed, and once we determine that these folks need help outside of what we can provide, a resource for them to go to. And as Rob had stated earlier, we do have a few places we can call to give that type of information to these folks. But as far as recruiting officers, we are never going to ask to put them in a situation where it would put their own selves at risk or the community at risk. And domestic violence, I mean, is as I had said earlier, is absolutely hands down one of the most dangerous calls we go to. And it's primarily because of the human emotion involved in a domestic situation. You have typically two perfectly normal people that probably have no criminal record or anything, and you will see them at their absolute worst in those types of incidents. There are numerous homicides, officer assaults, officer-involved shootings that come out of domestic disturbances for a variety of reasons. And so in that scenario that you're given, we would never ask our officers, a commissioned officer, to not have a weapon, if that answers your question, Tracy.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Another question I had was in reference to the police officers. It sounds, I mean, for the clarity, from what I understand, it's not that we're not interested in hiring more police officers. It's not based off of what we think. A lot of this has to do with based off of what we have available to, you know, as far as revenues to budget for something like this. And with that being said, I'm curious if we can get some feedback from the budgeting committee in reference to where we're going to come up with, if we have this available funding in the future, if there's any perspective discussion that's taken place along this, or if it's just a pipe dream at this point.
Pat?
You know, it seems like when we talked about this last year, of course, I want lots more police. I'll admit that right now, but it seemed like it was about 125 or 150,000 a year per officer. I'm not sure. I guess we'd have to dig really deep. I don't remember what the number is though.
Want to clarify that, Todd?
About 115 per officer a year with benefits and everything. That's an estimate. It's an estimate.
Thank you, Mayor. Without any disrespect to any of their council members on the committee, I would like to hear from Councilmember Kaminsky, who was at these last committee meetings for finance, and her thoughts on it, if she thinks that the money is there. And let me remind you, council, this is a budget. It's not something that's finite. We haven't voted on it. We can rearrange money. Just because the budget doesn't include this doesn't mean the money's not there. There's other priorities that this budget goes towards. We spend a lot of money on that. Who knows where we get that money, but it's there, and we spend that money on different projects. So if this is important to you, which it's very important to me, as you can tell, and I know it is for a few other council members, public safety for me is our number one. As a city, that's our number one thing that we have to do, is provide public safety. There's a lot of other resources, a lot of other things. I'm not downplaying them, but for me, public safety is so important. And for us not to give them the resources they need, we can find the money. We have in the past, and the way we budget currently, it doesn't highlight or doesn't provide for additional officers. But perhaps Terry could talk about some of the last finance committee meetings, if the revenue is there, if she thinks it's there.
The last meeting that we looked at was the request, I believe it was from Molly, for the non-armed moderator type person to be put full-time on staff. And I remember Heidi clearly saying that because it was an ongoing expense, it would not be a viable thing right now. But as for getting money from other areas, that's a question more for Heidi. Unless we get it from the water that we're saving. I don't know. We haven't seen that.
Different funds. We can't use that money, but I still think the money is there. I mean, we're spending money. We're increasing budgets on multiple projects or multiple different budgets, accounts. They're increasing. So they aren't one-time monies that we're spending on there. We're increasing funding on a lot of different funds.
So I'm going to take an opportunity here to answer some of those questions a little bit. Chief, first off, if you'd move your slide forward to where it demonstrates how many officers we've had per year. That's a little more clear than this one. Yeah. So first off, I want to bring your attention, folks, that I came on as mayor in 2016. Thank you for that appointment, by the way, and was reelected in 2017. At that point, we had 12 officers. We now have 15. It took me 2 years of budgeting to find the money to prioritize, as has always been presented, as we needed more officers. And we were able to accomplish that. And I appreciate the support that the council gave me in those budgets. And we got our officers up to 15. I also appreciate the budget amendment that you approved that allowed us to have the +1 so we could take advantage of these retirements and not leave our police force understaffed out on the street performing their duties. I also know that our chief and assistant chief and the sergeants are going to take great pains to make sure that our officers are well supported, both with their training and their equipment that they ask for, and in our ongoing relationships with our mutual aid partners, with the Thurston County Sheriff's Department, even Pierce County Law Enforcement, State Patrol, and others. So I appreciate the job they're able to do on our limited budget. We will look for opportunities to provide more law enforcement officers as time goes on, but we have to be so careful with the expenditure revenue balance. And if a council member wants to come forward with a realistic proposal that demonstrates where the revenue is going to come from to support these officers, which again, I want just as badly as anyone else for public safety, but we have to remember that these costs compound year after year, especially now that we're in a negotiation situation where we may end up spending more than we've even budgeted so far. We have to be able to support these officers for their careers, not for a couple of years. And if our expenditures overcome our revenue streams, and it has to result in layoffs to officers, we can't afford to do that. We hire officers for careers and we support them through those careers. If you can find revenue projections and realistic reductions in other programs that come to the tune of $125,000 a year, I would love to see those. This budget came together. Give me my time, please, Joe. This budget came together with really good information from all of our department heads. And we do have to pay the police department out of the general fund, which, as you understand from reading through the revenue projections, comes from a finite set of funding sources. The Other monies that you'll see expended are one-time monies from reserve, where we'll still maintain our 15% expenditures in the cash forward because of that. And you'll also see them coming from utility funds, which pay for themselves through ratepayers and other programs. We can't share money from one to the other. So the general fund has to balance out, and we have to be very careful not to have that expenditure line run through the roof of that revenue line. And we're pretty concerned about that. We're okay right now, but you've seen the graphs just tonight presented to you by our finance officer. And if you have more questions about that, I'm sure she'd be glad to answer them again. But we are this close to running through the roof of our revenue stream, and we can't afford big chunk items like that that we would have to support for 30 years until we see that those revenues are well supported. So forgive me for rambling on a little bit, but it's not just as easy as saying we're going to hire a couple of officers and find the money someplace else. Show me that money, and I'd be glad to make the adjustment in my proposed budget. Joe?
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I just want to correct your timeline a little bit. In 2016, we added an officer in January. Was one of my first votes. You weren't mayor back then. Your proposed budget in 2016 did not increase. That's why it shows in 2017 the extra officer.
That's what I said.
Hold up, please, Mayor. I didn't interrupt you. Please don't interrupt me. Okay. In 2016, we did not add an extra officer under your proposed budget. In 2017, beginning with the biennial budget, we did, and that's why I voted for it. But to your point that no one's talking about it, no one's trying to find you the money. I sent in a proposal over a month ago, well over 2 months ago, before your actual budget was out. I got zero response. I didn't even get a response that said you accepted it or you received it. I heard nothing but crickets. And in that, I didn't find all that. I think I was suggesting $140,000 for an officer, including the equipment and the vehicle and all that stuff and training. But I did suggest cuts on certain areas where I didn't get any. I would love to have a meeting with you to discuss it. I didn't get offered that. I didn't get anything, any feedback on it. I just got the proposal or the budget just like everyone else did on council. So I mean, to say that we aren't trying or find us the money, that's kind of disingenuous. I have tried to work with you on that, but I get crickets coming back to me.
Yeah, so great. The proposals that you came in with to make cuts to our budget were things like $40,000 from tourism, which you know yourself comes from a different fund that we can't raid to pay for the general fund expenditures in the police department, and tourism and $4,000, $5,000 here and there, not supported by any ideology, just saying we can snip some money here, we can snip some money there, and it didn't come out to half of an FTE, certainly not in 1 year, and most certainly not in multiple years, as those monies wouldn't be compounded. They would have been one-time cuts. So bring forward a proposal that demonstrates a clear, sustainable revenue projection for that expenditure, and we'd be happy to put that in the budget. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I understand the tourism money. I feel that we spend a lot more than we need to. And I understand this goes towards tourism, but it doesn't mean we have to spend the whole pot. Secondly,
yes,
excuse me, Mayor, I don't interrupt you. Please quit interrupting me. Please. I beg you, please. So gosh, you always do that to me. You always try to interrupt me, interrupt my train of thought. I never do that to you. You ask me not to do it. I don't do it to you. Please don't do it to me, Mayor, please. So regarding the money that you say that isn't 5,000 here, 10,000 there, I'm not just randomly choosing those monies. Those are monies that we aren't realizing in the last budget. They're actuals versus budgeted. So if something's budgeted for 10,000, but we're only spending 5,000 every year, to me, that's $5,000 that we don't have to spend. I mean, I'm not a genius when it comes to this. I'm not a finance director, but that's to me is areas that we can cut. And yes, those do add up. Absolutely, they add up. And lastly, if you were so concerned about that, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you just even acknowledge that you received my email instead of just blasting me on here like this? I had no idea you felt this way. I'd encourage you to meet with me. Please, I beg of you to meet with me.
Well, if you're done begging, I will tell you that if you bring forward a proposal that we can actually take to the finance committee, and if the finance committee would actually meet with the finance director so that we could go over that, we'd be happy to show you how those might work or might not work. But your proposal did get reviewed. It was taken into account when all of the department heads put forward this budget proposal. And you can see that what it ended up with. Happy to support the police department and the programs that they're doing. And we'll look forward to supporting them even more as revenues get better, as we get water rights, as we get a habitat conservation plan, as we have the development come in that helps support those revenues that come into the general fund. When we have those monies, we'll have the monies that support those programs that come out of the general fund. And that's what will be included in my budgets here forward. So council, or chief, do you have any other presentations, or do we move on to court?
That is the end of my presentation. I apologize, my computer went dead right there. So I moved on to Rob's computer. So I now have my mask on. And no, that is my entire presentation. And the only thing I just want to leave everyone with regarding the budget and the request and the officers that we currently have is we have an incredible group of officers that do an incredible job. I couldn't be prouder of who they are and how they do this job. And, my job as a department head is to look at our needs and propose those needs. And that's what I do every year, every 2 years. And so my job is to ask for what I think we need. And if we don't get that, we're going to continue to evolve and develop and make sure that our citizens have no impact moving forward for as long as we can maintain a high level of service. And so I just wanted to put that out there is that, again, the request is put out there, budgets are budget, and we've spent months working with all the departments. There were other departments that made additional requests as well that were unfunded. And so I just want to put out there that process and that relationship and that discussions have been extensive over the past 2 months. And so I am optimistic that as we come out of this pandemic and we move into next year, that hopefully our financial situation does improve. And if it does improve, there's budget amendments, there's those processes that can take place, and the need will not go away for us. I guess I want to put that out there that our city is not getting smaller. It is going to continue to grow. And Joe, you're right in a sense, when you talk about, when you look down the road, if we don't do something sooner than later, the deficit becomes too big to take up. And so I'm hopeful that as we move into next year and we move into more positive financial pictures, that with the council support and the mayor's support, that our department can grow accordingly, and hopefully sooner rather than later. So that's all I have, unless anyone has questions for me. Okay, thank you very much, and we'll let Sonia, thank you for patiently waiting in there for your 5-minute presentation.
Wow, thank you. Okay, can everybody hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, I don't know what happened. I'm gonna try this again.
You had it.
Was it there?
Yeah.
Oh, because I can't see it on mine.
Yep,
That's
there
why.
it is.
Okay. Well, I can't see it. Give me a sec.
Try clicking on slideshow at the bottom of your screen on your toolbar, unless you need your notes.
Oh, there?
Yeah.
Okay, that's better. So mine is short and sweet. And so I will, let's see, start off with our framework. And our mission, has always been, and we continue to strive to resolve legal matters in a promptly, fairly, and accurately way, and instill public trust and confidence. And fairness, integrity, and quality service is the core of what we stand for as an organization. I put this slide, I know you guys know who our core staff is, but there is a new person that we added, Josh Sneva. It's a public defender. So for those of you that hear about him, I just wanted you to put a face with a name together. So that's Mr. Shniva and the wonderful staff. Just some very quick facts from 2019 and 2020. Some court filings for 2020. We had, well, filings to date, I'm sorry, 85 infractions and 462 criminal cases for a total of 547 cases. This is just up until September. And then I put a comparison of 2018 and 2019. And so you can see that, I mean, we're already at the end of October and our filings are pretty low, but that's due again because of the, due to the pandemic. We were closed for a little bit and we weren't getting too many filings. The same for passports that we've been processing. Our office was closed for a few months as well. And so to date in 2020, we have processed 210 passport applications, bringing revenue to the city of $7,350. And in 2019, we processed a total of 600 applications for a total of $22,000 in city revenue. A few key accomplishments. We trued up caseload counts and compensation for our public defenders to meet the standards of the Washington State Commission. We also installed and implemented our N-Court for online, mobile, and call center payments. This we're able to provide now the convenience to our court customers to make payments with a debit and credit card at the front counter. We did not have that ability. And so now we offer that, and it's so much easier. People come out of their court hearing and they're able to pay immediately since a lot of people don't carry cash anymore or even checks. So that's been a great addition. It's been challenging, but we worked through the challenges of continuing to provide our services during this pandemic, and it's worked out great. I completed my long 6-year program and earned my court management certification earlier this year. So I'm very excited for that. We strengthened partnerships with Safe Place of Olympia and Family Support Center. Those are 2 nonprofit organizations that we have worked with. And before the pandemic, they used to appear and they were present during court dates to offer resources like victim advocacy, safety planning, and just basic needs like transportation and food assistance information for our court customers. But since we've reopened court and everything's done really virtually, and with the social distancing, they have not been able to be here in person. But we continue to provide information through the brochures and things like that for those customers that need to get to those resources. Let's see. What's here? You all remember that in 2019, we partnered with Thurston District Court for their mental health court and veterans court program. And this year, we partnered with Thurston County District Court and the other local municipal courts to offer 2 amnesty days, but the formal word was LFOs, which means for legal financial obligations. These 2 dates allowed defendants to appear by video or just writing a letter requesting the judges to reduce their court fines or convert them into community service or remove them from the collection companies and to help them get relicensed. And surprisingly, we did get a lot of people that took advantage of those amnesty days. So that was something that we will continue to work together to offer every year or maybe twice a year and give people the opportunity to pay their fines and get relicensed. But the 2 key safety accomplishments that we had was we completed the installation of our metal detectors in our public safety building. And I invite all of you to stop by in our building, you know, with your mask, of course, when you have the chance or if you're passing by and check it out. And also we completed and implemented the audio video conferencing for our in custody defendants. So they no longer get transported by our officers in person to our courtroom. So this, these two accomplishments that, you know, together with police department and the IT department, add security and provides a safer environment to our staff and our court customers and any other customers that come into our building. Our goals for 2021 and 2022 as we move forward is to prepare for the current and projected growth of our city, continue to work with our technology team for becoming a paperless court. I know I've mentioned this before in my other presentations, but with the COVID and everything, we had to put that on hold for a little bit and concentrated more on our virtual hearings and the audio video conferencing with the jail. But we still have this on our list and we will get it accomplished. Obviously, I always strive to seek more court programs through funding, through grants from the community that can help us implement and integrate more programs for our court customers. By the end of this year, actually November the 12th is our go live date with our O-Court software. This software will provide all of our court forms, our notices, and all our calendaring through this O-Court software program. So this will now allow our judge to just in a computer put his signature and impose all the conditions on the order. So we will no longer have the order, judgment, and sentence by paper. And so this is a new addition as well. And again, we will go live on November the 12th, and we will just report later on how this is going, but I'm excited for that as well.
Hey, Sonia, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is this for people to e-file documents? So like e-filing notices of appearance and, you know, noting up hearings and stuff like that, or no?
No, this is just for all of our court forms at this time.
Okay. Any future plans to do something like that, and where you know, attorneys could download case files from for each docket?
Oh yes, absolutely. That's something that's going to be part of us. We work on being paperless and trying to come up with a plan for that.
Cool.
Yes.
Thank you.
So that's coming. You're welcome. Let's see, where did I leave off? As we know, the court is not a money-making business, so we have to seek other sources as other alternatives for revenue. And so there's a warrant fee policy that we can implement that Judge Meyer and I will be getting together in the next couple of weeks. Probation fees, if we had a probation fee, it's also 100% of this revenue can stay in the city. And so we're looking at little other alternatives of how we can bring in some type of revenue to the court or the city. Contract with a probation officer has been on my list for a couple of years. This would assist us in removing that piece from Donnie and allowing her to have a little bit more time for other duties here in the office. But this probation officer would pretty much monitor all of our court defendants to make sure that they are meeting the conditions that are set by the court. And so a grant has been submitted with the Nisqually Tribal, and so with the Nisqually Tribe, and so we're waiting to hear on that. I'm crossing my fingers that we get funding for that. I continue to work with Cody in the Public Works Department in offering a community service program to offset customer court fines that cannot pay their fines. Maybe they can help out in doing some community service in the city. And I know Cody has been, he got a hold, or reached out to the city of Tenino, their public works. They have a very similar program of what we want to do. And so he's waiting to hear back from Tenino. And also we would have to have approval from the union. So that's also in the works. It's, we've been working on this for a little bit, but it hasn't been implemented yet, but we're not giving up, and we will keep you posted on that as well. And then obviously facilitate more staff training to meet the needs of the court and city departments. And this is just our current structure. Judge, we have a contract prosecutor, 2 public defenders, 1 full-time court administrator, and a court clerk. And that's pretty much it. If anybody has any questions for me, I'm sorry I went through that very, very fast.
Councilmember Wood has a question.
Yes.
Thank you, Sonia. I was curious. You mentioned and of course, as you know, I'm all about those folks doing, offsetting their fines and whatnot with our own community here. And I know that, and you've been working hard on it. I know you have, and I certainly appreciate it. I'm curious how things are going as far as, because I know the primary wall it seemed we ran into was the union, as far as how that was going to be dealt with on their side. I'm wondering, and as you did mention, they're trying to figure out the pathway through there. Is there any sort of sign of any sort of progress in that area, or are we still just kind of in the negotiation stages of that?
If Cody's on the line, I don't know if he can assist me in answering this question, but it's definitely moving along. I know it seems like it's taken a while, but part of it is with the union, and also it's my understanding that there might be some possible L&I fees that we may have, the city would have to pick up. And so I'm also going to reach out to other courts to see what they are doing, for those L&I fees, if it's something that maybe we can have the court defendants cover. I don't know if that's even possible or not, but I'm working on that piece. And then Cody, like I mentioned, he is waiting to hear from the city of Tenino to see what their program is like and how it's functioning. And then also he will reach out to the union rep.
Well, thank you very much. I do certainly appreciate your efforts on this, and
you're very welcome.
Hopefully we can get to where we're trying to get to. Thank you again.
Yes.
Councilmember DePino has a question.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just curious how, and I've seen the metal detectors, but I haven't seen them in action. Is that a pretty efficient process for the courts?
Yes. Todd, Rob, can you help me with this one?
Yeah, so the metal detectors have not gotten nearly as much use as we had hoped, only entirely because of this pandemic, because of the way we're operating currently with the court and limited people coming into the court and doing more online type stuff. We haven't got to use them as much as we had hoped, but yes, they're working very well, and we're getting outstanding compliance of folks coming in. They're right at the door. If they have anything on them, they're just taking it right back to their cars and leaving it in their cars. So yeah, it's working fantastic.
Good. That's great to hear. Thank you.
And if I may add, we also do have a handheld as well, in case we have, well, right now we don't have a line of people, because of the social distancing and everything, but I do, if we happen to have somebody that it just keeps ringing and ringing, then they will have them, go move a little bit to the side, and then they will do the wand. So that is working out too. Anybody else? Went once, twice? No?
Thank you for the presentation. Really well done.
Thank you.
Okay, Michael, did you have any final comments for, are you even here? Where are you, Michael? There you are.
No final comments, Mayor.
Okay. Chief, good?
Good, thank you, and appreciate the questions on everything tonight.
Yeah, good presentations tonight. So please, council, take time to read through the budget. It's hard to go through the whole budget, I know, especially when you're looking for something in particular. Michael, Heidi, and I are available to help you find what you're looking for in there. And I look forward to continued discussions as we have more presentations. So thanks for your time tonight, And we will, this is the official meeting's already been adjourned. So we will just say